Hey everyone, how's it going? It's me and the Fox here, and I just finished playing the very first installment of the new adult point-and-click game slash graphic novel called Eternum. And for those of you that don't know anything about this game, it's created by, I can't ever remember if this is pronounced Caribdis or Caribdis. I don't know, but anyway, it's the same developer of Once in a Lifetime, one of my other favorite games of this, kind of adult-based genre. And I did a review on that as well, based on the like to dislike ratio. I'm not entirely sure if people just don't like me or if they didn't like the game, but it doesn't help because no one really left any comments informing me of such, but whatever. Maybe I'll do better in this video. So, Eternum, normally I don't review the very first installments of these kind of games because typically there isn't enough content to talk about. Not the case with this game. There is a lot of stuff to talk about, and so as I usually do, I'll go through it by first off mentioning the synopsis, and I'm going to read from what's actually typed up in front of me here about the game, so bear with me, this is actually kind of a longer one. You're moving with your best friend to the city of Credin, that's how I believe it's pronounced, home to some of the best schools, universities in the country, to continue your studies. However, in Credin, there's only one thing everyone talks about: Eternum, the virtual hyper-reality Momorpica game released a few years ago that revolutionized the world of technology. With a neural implant that recreates the five senses, it becomes impossible to distinguish between the game and the real world. Thousands of servers from the network of Eternum, from colorful, magic-filled fantasy worlds to foggy sci-fi cities, no world is beyond reach. Nevertheless, looking beyond the surface, there's a darker side to this pretty facade. Black markets, torture, a word that rhymes with ape, illegal content trafficking, unlawful assemblies, data theft. Eternum follows the rules of no man. For some reason, governments turn a blind eye to this. There's no regulation and control. Some say it's because the game is highly addictive, some say it's because the market moves millions of dollars daily, some say those in power have been bribed, and others say there's something else going on. Bum bum bum. And you? What's your role in the story? Well, that's up to you. Okay, now that I've finished reading that out, here's basically what happens. The game opens up where the character you play, whose default name is Orion, but you can choose whatever name that you want. He was living in the place Credin until he was 8 years old. His mother left him shortly after he was born. His dad traveled around everywhere, so his dad moved to Europe, so the character that you play ended up going there with him. When you're living in Europe, you develop a friendship with these two other people, a guy and a girl. The girl's name is Annie. She's this really lovable nerd, gamer type, but, kind of like just the girl next door, my type. And then your other guy friend, his name is Chain, of Asian ethnicity, and he's a cool, down-to-earth dude as well. Much like the character that you play as. Basically, the game starts off where you're on a train. You're now 18. You've moved back to the town of Credin, and these two friends that you met when you were over in Europe, you're now taking with you because you got accepted in this exchange program thing, and so they've come along with you to finish their studies. It's all very elaborate, and so that's basically the setup. In Credin, you're now living with this character named Nancy, who used to be your babysitter when you were last living in the town. She also has two other daughters, and so one of them's named Dahlia. She's like a very fitness, sports-oriented kind of individual. They're both hot, by the way, because of course they're going to be. The other one's named Penelope. She's an Instagram model in this, but she's, kind of like the more sophisticated one without being snooty. And then there's another character that you meet at the school that you're going to called Luna. I wouldn't say she's gothic. She's got, nods towards being that way inclined, with the dark sense of humor and the fact she's got the black hair and the black clothes and all that, but, I really like that character. So, moving on from there, basically, as the game unfolds, you, through a competition, wind up winning this little implant to play the game Eternum. And I gotta say, what the game looks like when you go in there is pretty awesome. I mean, as far as these games go, you really don't get like this visual awesome quality like this game. But of course, there's one thing I know about this developer now. He or she, I'm pretty sure it's a guy, but whatever. The developer really does seem to have a passion for this. Like, I presume that he would have this vision in his head and then he just goes and tries to create that. He doesn't just look at these default images and whatever program that he uses to make all the models and the levels, and then goes, oh, I'll just try and force a story into this. It seems like he's got a vision, and then he sets out to accomplish that vision, which is awesome. But the sci-fi world, it looks similar to Blade Runner, with maybe like a futuristic cyberpunk kind of aspect to it. And then when you're in the world of Eternum as well, there's like I'm just going to say high fantasy, like your Dungeons and Dragons, your World of Warcraft, your Dragon Age, things along those lines. And the interesting thing is that when you're spending time in the real world and then going between then and the world of Eternum, you would think that because the worlds look so different, it would in some way break immersion, but it doesn't. Everything feels super organic. It just fits so well. And so I really, I just love the fact that I could be so immersed in the game and never once be taken out of that experience. And of course, much like Once in a Lifetime, the humor is still there because I wasn't sure what to expect with this game. I did have a certain expectation just because of who developed it and how much I love Once in a Lifetime. And I was really hoping that that same level of quality would be brought over, because I'm not saying this is true with everyone, but sometimes people's first project that they make is really the best thing that they've done, and it's hard to live up to that because they put all the best ideas into the first project. But I gotta say, this guy really surprised me because Eternum is really fucking good. It's got the same kind of humor that Once in a Lifetime had. It's got a lot of inside jokes to pop culture and things like that. It's got very, lovable, dorky, but, fun kind of characters. Dialogue was also really good. I only found one typo only, which is really nothing to make a big deal about. I mean, it's the first installment and it's going to get fixed up later on anyway. But when you consider how many words there are in just this first installment alone to go through, one typo, not a big deal. As for the engine that it's made on, we all know I'm a huge fan of the Remping engine, and that's what this is made on. So I really like that engine because it's very user-friendly. You don't need to install any additional thing. You just download the game, double-click on the launch app, and then there's the game, ready to go. As for its format, it's not a sandbox game. It's the same as Once in a Lifetime. It's a linear story with multiple branching paths because it's multiple options for a lot of things. And of course, like his previous game, there will be multiple endings. What else to talk about here? As for the genre of this game, God, I don't know. I guess, well, yeah, you could say that it would be partially sci-fi, just purely based on the whole aspect of this video game, Eternum. But, outside of that, I guess there's a little bit of comedy, of course. There might be a little bit of drama, there's a little bit of a thriller aspect. The other thing, too, I was wondering, because Once in a Lifetime, they referenced the game Eternum and when it was in its early stages, and I was wondering, when Eternum comes out, are they going to reference anything from the previous game? And if so, how? And that actually did happen. If you remember the cult that was in the other game, well, that was referenced as well, and I'm like, there it is. Okay, nice. I was wondering how they were going to do that. Alright, as for the lewd content, keep in mind, first installment, there will be a lot more of it later, but there is still, some stuff. There's the usual mandatory shower peeping scene that every single one of these games seem to have. With that being said, this game did it better, because most games it's usually somehow the door's always magically ajar, and then the guy's walking through the hallway, and then he's like, here's two options. Shall I peek, or shall I just ignore it and walk away? Like anyone's gonna fucking choose the second option. So, with this one it was done a lot better. Don't really want to ruin it to say, how it was done, but it was better. And then, of course, there's an actual sex scene, if you play your cards right, later on in the game, in the in-game game, like as in Eternum when you're in the virtual reality world. So on top of that, even the background music that's in this is very well suited. So it's more light-hearted when the guy's talking about things regarding to exposition. It's got like this big orchestral score during some battle scenes when you're in the fake world. Yeah, all in all, just the music's perfectly suited. So if you're a big fan of these kind of games that actually have music, like with a purpose, not just there for the sake of being there, great news. This game delivers on that. The other thing too I was going to mention as well, with the exposition and the explanations of the world, the pacing of it's really well done. Like, they don't just throw every single bit of mythology in your face at the very beginning. They'll give you the character's backstory, and then they'll explain a bit about the game Eternum. Then from that point, as you're progressing through the game, you learn stuff like with the character. So the character's also blind and naive to a lot of this stuff, as you would be if you never played the game before. So I really love that pacing, about how that was, how it was done. And so when I actually have the time to, digest some information and go, all right, cool, I'm on board with that, maybe 20 minutes later I'll get more information about, something to do with the mythology of this game. But as for any bugs and everything, at least in this version, I didn't come across any, not with the paths that I chose. So it's always good when a game just works, But yeah, other than that, I think that's pretty much all I really should say about this at this point. Oh, actually, no, there is one more thing I'll quickly mention, because I, like a fuckhead, just accidentally scanned over it. This is just a little thing that I really enjoy with these kind of games, and it's just these little subtle transitions involving stuff, regarding the comedy. If just maybe something as simple as, just like a character, just pointing at someone else as you hear that sound effect of kick into place. I know that may sound like a little bit dumb or something to, make a big deal about, but, if they didn't have those sound effects, or if they didn't have the camera zooming in as the character went to point at someone else and, to respond to something that he or she said, it just wouldn't have the same effect. So this person, I think, does understand pacing and comedy and the element of surprise with that as well. So, yeah, at this point, that's really all I have to say about this first installment. Maybe with some other additions later on, I'll review it, but at this point, even if when the time you watch this, the final version of the game's released, hopefully the information I've given you here is enough to make you go, you know what, yeah, I may go, try that game out. Especially if you've played once in a lifetime and enjoyed the game, just trust me, this is a great game, I really like it. At this point, I can't quite say if I like it more or less than once in a lifetime, but definitely it's on the same level at the moment. I just like Eternum differently. So, that's my closing thoughts. Fox, you got anything you want to say? And this is why you have no friends. Okay. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Have a good one. Take care. Go play some games.